Go.
Dylan Thomas, letter to administration, date May 6, 2025. This is Dylan A. Thomas. Since my incarceration for having a mental breakdown July 1st, 2020, my sole dog, Winston, died. My best friend, Ryan, drank himself to death, and my grandfathers, Kenneth and Clifford, have passed away. I am using my inheritance money for a second opinion, a brain scan, and a private investigator. I will clear my name. Traumatic experiences are being confused for delusions of the imagination. Now, you have over 4 years of 24/7 video surveillance footage of me being not schizophrenic. I do not hallucinate. I do not hear voices. I do not talk to myself, and I harbor no delusions, nor do I pretend to. I inhabit a mutual reality. I wrote a lengthy book chronicling a decade of names, dates, addresses, incident reports, and tactics of the criminal state. I am indiscriminately leaking it onto the internet for free download. I am launching my podcast, Dylan Thomas Live from the Looney Bin, this year. I recorded over 40 audio files over the telephone in 2024 for this podcast. The point being that injustices visited upon me inside and outside of institutions across this country, including this one, will soon be made public and subject to scrutiny. Power operates in the dark. Expose it to the light and it wilts and evaporates. I am telling you that medical mistakes are being made and my rights are being violated. Rights violations hurt people, and no one is allowed to hurt me ever again. That's what guns are for. See Thomas v. Dakota Ohm opinion. Check out my lawsuit. It failed to grant me protection orders against informants who tried to have me entrapped, imprisoned, jumped, and murdered. One defendant directly threatened my white family's life. However, my lawsuit was successful in that it got fragments of my testimony and the names of a handful of multiple dozens of state actors who acted criminally under color of law onto public record. I introduced new language to the internet. Google search "do not apprehend warrant." One result in the entire matrix will pop up. Mine. My civil cause of action. Check it out. The notion that I am pathologically lying or delusional about my rights being habitually violated by the criminal state is as offensive as it is absurd. As if state repression and state censorship and state-sponsored terrorism doesn't exist in the world's leading terrorist state. All countries have security forces and secret police. All of them. Privilege blinds you. You lack the education to interpret my experiences, so you reflexively mock and dismiss them as being paranoid delusions. You have no frame of reference as you suffer from historical amnesia. Go back to MK Ultra and COINTELPRO and the Church Committee House Review on Intelligence hearings of the 1970s with Daniel Ellsberg's leaks and exposures of the Pentagon Papers. Well, these motherfuckers are at it again. COINTELPRO never stopped. MK Ultra never stopped. They evolved into gang stalking, of which I am a victim. See gang stalking on the news, 4-minute vignette. See Cops Gone Wild, Domestic Terrorist Edition. Gang stalking is Homeland Security filling its own lexicon. The basic modus operandi is that the FBI solves terrorism plots that they created. Facebook and Google are data monopolies, surveillance companies, and terrorist organizations and wholly owned subsidiaries of the FBI, who are the national political police. Facebook and Google are also giddy participants in the PRISM program. See also Vault 7 exposures. Prima facie fantastical, paranoid, delusional, schizophrenic psychobabble to you, perhaps, but very real to the victims. I am one of them. I happen to know. All I am saying is that the truth always comes out, but often too late. I wrote a compelling book chronicling abuses of state power inflicted upon me in what can only be described as a nationwide campaign of hatred against me under color of law and a full-blown psychological torture program. I am also launching my podcast this year, I Am Who I Say I Am. I suffer from extreme post-traumatic stress disorder consistent with psychological torture, not paranoid delusional schizophrenia. Read my book and tune into my podcast coming very soon to YouTube and SoundCloud. And check out my aforementioned lawsuit, or just Google search in quotation marks, "do not apprehend warrant." You will find me. The federal government and the military-industrial complex in the security and surveillance state are targeting the best and brightest among you for surveillance and disruption and assassination. And it's not just Trump-era belligerent criminal retardation either. The Obama administration and the Biden administration are just as guilty, although not as flagrant and brazen about it. We are talking about military psyops, Google's social credit system abuse of targeted individuals, and full-spectrum dominance, clandestine counterintelligence operations against innocent, unarmed American citizens, civilians on U.S. domestic soil, under the false pretense of domestic terrorism investigations and the endless so-called war on terror, which are terrorist operations generating ever more terrorism. These are self-perpetuating cycles of violence, once again, Homeland Security filling its own lexicon, all under color of law, adding new layers and dimensions to unprecedented institutionalized lawlessness, not an isolated episode. Systemic patterns of constitutional criminality. See Chris Hedges' full spectrum dominance speech. See Chris Hedges' Snowden debate, Oxford Union. Don't doubt it, know about it. Anyone who attempts to subvert the Constitution is a traitor and should be arrested and tried for treason and put to death. And I'll just leave it at that. In solidarity, pursuant to social justice, the correctivist Dylan A. Thomas, 5/06/2025, followed by a syllabus of 34 links to Chris Hedges, the top journalist on Earth's material and content, but most notably, Chris Hedges on Jeremy Hammond sentencing. That's Chris Hedges on Jeremy Hammond sentencing, 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Chris Hedges on what it takes to be a rebel in modern times. Chris Hedges' Snowden debate, Oxford Union. Chris Hedges at Teach-In on War on Capitol Hill. Chris Hedges speaking at Occupy Wall Street, Radical Movements Keep This Country Honest, and Chris Hedges speaking at Occupy Wall Street Part 2 Q&A to Radical Movements Keep This Country Honest. And I would just add, check out Occupy Harvard, Chris Hedges, 3 parts, 8 minutes each, 8, 16, 24 minutes, Chris Hedges, Occupy Harvard, and cut.